collaborations work. I hope that this activity will foster meaningful partnerships between our organizations in addressing the many challenges we face, including the Zero Hunger Labs advocacy, addressing hunger. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat. Welcome and good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Ador, for your warm welcome remarks. This is an excellent way to jump into our program. So let me see some party poppers and smiley faces on the chat box to make us feel better or good now. Okay, so thank you for those reactions. Now, in tonight's first session, we'll be focusing on food security, education, and building transnational collaborations. So here to talk to us about that is Lehigh University's transnational programs, how they work, and what can be done. In this space is Dr. Bill Whitney, Administrative Director for the Office of Creative Inquiry at Lehigh University. So it's actually morning at Dr. Whitney's place. So Mr. Whitney holds a PhD in theater and drama from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and serves as an adjunct professor of theater at Lehigh and other colleges. Prior to his current role with Creative Inquiry, Dr. Bill spent 6 years as executive assistant to the president at Lehigh. Dr. Bill also holds an MA in drama from Washington University in St. Louis and BA degrees in English and Theater Arts from Nebraska, Leone University. His past theater based research and scholarship has revolved around questions of reception and production in contemporary experimental theater of the US and the phenomenon of fringe theater festivals. Currently, his interests circulate around higher education administration and culture, the role of arts and humanities in higher education, and the changing nature of academic research. Now let's welcome Dr. Bill Whitney.
Thank you so much, Emma, for that wonderful introduction. And let me share my slides so that we can get started. It's wonderful to be here with you all, and thank you for inviting me. And yes, it is morning here, but not too early, so I appreciate that. But it's wonderful to be here, and I look forward to talking with you about some of the programs that we've been developing at Lehigh University. The office that I work for, as you heard, is called Creative Inquiry, and this is something that is somewhat unique, even among U.S. universities, although it does represent a trend, certainly in the way that university programs are being constructed. But I like to think, at least, somewhat proud of the fact that we're on the cutting edge a little bit of establishing these types of programs in the U.S. Certainly among universities the size of Lehigh, which, if you're not familiar, Lehigh is an institution of approximately 6,000 undergraduates, slightly less, and about 2,000 graduate students. We're over 150 years old, and we reside in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, about 90 miles from New York City, about twice that far from Washington, D.C. and Boston. So we're very well located on the U.S. East Coast with proximity to a lot of research ecosystems in those areas. So I'm the administrative director of the office. I work for, I work for Kanjan Mehta, who is the Vice Provost for Creative Inquiry. And all of our positions in our office were only established about 4.5 years ago. We've been doing creative inquiry at Lehigh as a formal matter since January 2017. And since then, we've managed to spin off about 10 to 12 programs in total. I'm going to be talking about a few of those this morning and kind of walking you through how we structured these programs in order to facilitate the kind of certainly global and local collaborative problem solving that we want our students to engage in, and certainly our faculty as well. So from creative inquiry to sustainable impact is the title of this. And we often say, we tell our students on day one when they join our programs that we have exactly 3 goals. And those goals are impact, impact, and impact. So you can see where we are coming from. We are moving away from a traditional university research program or course that might engage in academic exercises that have an end date at the end of an academic semester. We are structuring our programs in a way that the projects that we support are far more open-ended, far more multifaceted and interdisciplinary, and that they all will lead to some kind of tangible, sustainable impact or an enormous failure, which is also fair game, as you know. So let me dive in. So education for a life of impact. And let me give just a little bit of background because I think it's relevant to how creative inquiry was developed at Lehigh, why it was developed at Lehigh University, why the university started this office in the first place. And I'll show you some photos later of Lehigh's Mountaintop campus. So Lehigh is actually, for the size of our university, we're actually fairly widely spread as far geographically. So we have about 2,000 acres of land that include 3 different campuses. There's sort of a main campus, and then we exist on the side of a small mountain, where they call it a mountain. It's really more of a big hill. But on top of that, there is what we call our Mountaintop campus. And at one time, the Mountaintop campus consisted of a set of buildings that belonged to the Bethlehem Steel Corporation, which at one time was the 2nd largest steel manufacturer in the world, and whose headquarters and factory sat just down the hill from Lehigh University's main campus. So for many, many years, many, many decades, in fact, Bethlehem Steel Corporation and Lehigh University were very inextricably linked. And this is why Lehigh grew up as sort of an engineering heavy school. But then in the 1990s and the early 2000s, Bethlehem Steel Corporation dissolved, essentially went under. The company failed. And so what we had, Lehigh had on its Mountaintop campus, were then a whole bunch of unused large industrial buildings that technically did not belong to Lehigh University, even though they were on Lehigh's land. But the Bethlehem Steel Corporation had disappeared. So all of their things were still there, but there were these huge industrial spaces. And the purpose of these spaces for Bethlehem Steel was for research and development in new metallurgies. And they were doing lots of, they were making lots of efforts at diversifying their business. This is back in the 1960s, 1970s, which never really came to fruition. But nonetheless, these spaces were set up specifically to foster interdisciplinary, open-ended research. And so fast forward, long story short, in 2012, Lehigh University finally attained these buildings and for our ownership. And then the question became, as a university, we have this enormous gift of space now. What do we do with it? And so the first answer to that question was what was called the Mountaintop Summer Experience. And that started in 2013 in the summer. And it was a 10-week program set up specifically for projects that didn't really fit anywhere else in the standard university curriculum. In other words, a student or faculty wanted to get together and try to do something radical, something different. And certainly in the early years of Mountaintop, it was very, very locally focused. In other words, these were projects that were of interest to Lehigh University faculty and students, but not necessarily of interest or impact or relevance to those outside of Lehigh University. And so but the program became successful and popular, as you might imagine. Students were getting an opportunity to do things without the pressure of grades or exams or some kind of culminating, test at the end of a semester that they would have to engage in. So they wanted to do this kind of work. And so as the program grew, the university then decided that this was a way to, that they wanted this to be part of how Lehigh does things year round, not just in the summer. And so we took over, we came in, Kanjan and myself, as Creative Inquiry, as an answer to that, to take over the summer program, but also to expand it and make it part of the ecosystem of Lehigh's research all year round, and give these opportunities to students and faculty year round to make an impact. And of course, the first decision that we made was we would no longer gear towards supporting projects that had a 10-week lifespan, because if you're truly trying to do something impactful, as you all know, 10 weeks is not nearly enough. Right. So the first thing that we did was try to create an infrastructure by which these projects could exist year round and be multi-year projects, in fact, where students' teams could sort of sign on, sign off, transfer to other students, incoming students come in, the train keeps rolling of the project, with a faculty mentor providing continuity, but maybe the students working on the project come and go. So that's in a nutshell what we do and why we exist. This is our kind of core concept. I would say it's maybe our core ethos, and it's this wonderful Japanese word ikigai, the reason for being, essentially. And this is what we show. Again, we also show our students this on day one. This is what we want them to get to. We want them to have an ability to explore their passions, to cultivate their talents, and to find something that they can be paid for. And most importantly, perhaps, although we don't necessarily say this, what does the world actually need? And of course, the world can be as close as our campus, and it can be as far away as you all in the Philippines on the other side of the globe. And so this is how we started to try and change the focus of these programs and these projects to an external calibration. And this is where we really started to expand into the global space. A couple other things about our core philosophy. So mindsets, skill sets, and portfolios. We often talk about the SMPs that we're developing in our students and even our faculty, I would say. It's hard to find a professor who would admit to not having their mindsets and skill sets and portfolios fully developed. But we do our best to kind of poke holes in that and say, no, everyone can still continue to develop their mindsets. So what do we mean by these things? Well, skill sets, obviously is the base of knowledge, the base of skills, what the students are able to do. And this is, of course, outdated now, but the World Economic Forum 2020 skill sets, this was our the framework that we used when we started in 2017, when 2020 was still a ways off, and of course nobody knew what that year was going to bring. But these are some of the skill sets that we try to cultivate, and so these aren't technical skills necessarily, and this isn't the kind of lecture-based knowledge that a student would typically need to develop in order to achieve a college major. These are the skills that are required for them to do the kind of complex work that they need to do to solve problems in the world. Mindsets, here's just kind of a list of some of the mindsets: creative inquiry-led approach, design thinking, entrepreneurial thinking, systems thinking, data-driven, evidence-based, global citizenship. Again, it's very important to us. And I should say, just as a brief tangent here, global citizenship and international programs have been expanding and developing at Lehigh University largely, in addition to the programs that we in Creative Inquiry have established. So really, globalizing Lehigh has been an effort that's been on multiple fronts that's been taking place over the last few years. And in fact, the international student population, the non-US student population of Lehigh University has gone from, I think it was 1 or 2% of the students, of the undergraduates, maybe 10 years ago, to now it's around 10%. So you're talking about a fairly exponential growth in the number of non-US based students that attend Lehigh University. Envisioning the future, coalition building, and so team-based work is very important to us, and it's very critical to what what we do. Ethical decision making, of course, taking the lead, playing by strengths, execution, and getting stuff done. So again, all of these are the necessary skill sets to solve global problems. Portfolios, just quickly. So, portfolios to us is anything that a student can put in their bundle of sticks, anything that they've accomplished, professional conferences, published research, teaching opportunities, of course, field work, actual products made or products contributed to. All of these things, go into a student's portfolio of accomplishment. And again, this sets them apart as they go out into the world of their careers. Not only equips them with the knowledge and the mindsets that they need to really make an impact in their career path, but also gives them, sets them apart from a typical college student that maybe just has a GPA and a major in their hand. So again, this is sort of our set of the experiences, the different types of experiences that we would put into the category of the sort of non-curricular education, arts, research, creative inquiry, that's us, entrepreneurship, global community engagement, internships, teaching, mentoring, leadership, and teamwork. These are all the kinds of experiences that we in creative inquiry and we at Lehigh University are trying to offer to our students in order for them to have the kinds of outcomes that you see there on the bottom half, where they can even as undergraduates co-author or publish research papers. They can present it at conferences alongside graduate students and faculty. They can have self-efficacy. They can have agency beyond just their identity as a student. And so really trying to build that mindset that they can accomplish things, they can achieve things and have an impact the day they step on the university's campus. They don't have to wait until they have the credential. That's really behind everything that we do. This is just a word cloud. Early on, we did kind of a survey. What are the fruits of innovation? Right. So what are all the things that can be created when people innovate? And this is just kind of a word cloud that was created out of that exercise. So you see, obviously, knowledge in the center with the big one, but there's all kinds of different things, and everything from arts, plays, and memes and designs to new religion to new business models, new systems, new everything, anything and everything. So we focus on, as I said, real, meaningful, authentic projects. And this is, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. So everything, of course, is real. And that's another mindset that we try to instill into our students, that, what's real goes far beyond your college campus, your college dorm. And what's real is what has an effect. An impact, and not just an impact in the moment, but an impact that's sustainable and tangible and will far outlive you. That is the kind of real, meaningful, authentic project that we want to engage in. And I'll certainly give you some examples of projects here coming up. So here's an image of the inside of, this is just part of our sort of home base on Lehigh's Mountaintop campus, Building C. This is one of the three actually high bays that Building C has, and there's also another part of the building that's equally as large. And so again, gives you the vision of that industrial space. This is where Bethlehem Steel conducted its research. And this is kind of how we set up things in the summertime. We give each project its own workspace, cubicle. The walls are whiteboards, as you can see. And then we give them lunch every day because there's not really anywhere to eat on the Mountaintop campus. And so we try to cultivate this sort of constant innovation environment. So these are all the things we try to cultivate through the Mountaintop and through creative inquiry, sense of community. So this is where we try and build, certainly in the summer up in Building C. Interdisciplinarity, of course, new intellectual pathways, commitment to impact, I've already said. Beyond Mountaintop, meaning what the programs that we run, yes, they take place in these buildings on the Mountaintop campus, but they also take place all over Lehigh's campus and all over the world. And then, of course, continuity, as I said, projects no longer are 10 weeks long. They are, 10 months or 10 years. And that's essential. This is just some images of some early Mountaintop projects. Hydroponic growing, building a new car, retrofitting cars. There were projects early on and projects that we cultivated early on that had to do with prosthetics. We had a project that was 3D printing structural concrete, which actually achieved proof of concept up at the Mountaintop, and in fact is working with industries right now in order to in order to 3D print concrete in a much more environmentally sustainable fashion than concrete is usually produced. So just all kinds of interesting and exciting projects, from the science and engineering all the way into the arts and humanities, and of course, all interdisciplinary in between, interdisciplinary teams. Here's a second summer program that we operate kind of in conjunction and parallel to the Mountaintop summer experience. And this was actually, this program was actually born out of the COVID pandemic, when we had a number of students in the summer of 2020 who had lost their summer internships, summer employment. They had nothing to do in the pandemic world. And so we spun out a second set of projects. There were about 15 projects that all had to do with the data science space. And so you can see some of just the titles of the projects right here. We call it the Data for Impact Summer Institute. It's really kind of a subset of the Mountaintop Summer Experience. So again, these projects are all intended to be multi-year, impact-focused types of projects. And you can see here everything from examining our local arts and culture scene from a data standpoint to larger, questions of societal changes and creating data visualizations of societal change. And then down on the left there, I'll point out, of course, the Mindanao Food Highway project, which Dr. Soriano helped us connect with. And that project has actually morphed slightly into a different project, which I will be talking about here very soon. Data for Impact Summer Institute, because these are all data science projects and not all of our students are going to come in with the requisite knowledge. The way we take care of that is we do a 1-week boot camp that consists of a whole lot of data focused workshops. So that's where we start with the data projects, and all the students kind of get on the same page. They get their knowledge of Python, Excel, basic coding, the kinds of just basic skills that they need to get going. So they don't have to do an entire semester's worth of work in order to start doing the work that they want to do on their projects. All right, so this is really the crux of the program that I want to talk about, the Global Social Impact Fellowship. And this was one of our, really after the Mountaintop summer experience, which we inherited, this was the first program that we really created. And I should say that Vice Provost Mehta has an extensive background working in global social impact and social entrepreneurship. Prior to coming to Lehigh, he began a program at Pennsylvania State University called Humanitarian Engineering and Social Entrepreneurship. It was a program that allowed students to engage in projects overseas. He's taken students to dozens of countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, and elsewhere. And so we took that ethos and then established this Global Social Impact Fellowship program. And here's kind of the matrix of how we administer the program. So in a nutshell, we have a set of projects, and currently, I'm going to go over the specific projects here in a second, but currently we have 10 projects in that under that Global Social Impact Fellowship program. So students apply to the program, but more importantly, they apply to a specific project, or maybe 2 projects. Maybe they have a second choice after their first choice. But we give them the list of projects, and they tell us which ones they are really sparked by, which ones they really want to work on. And so we have, obviously a variety of projects. Currently, 6 of our 10 projects are based in Sierra Leone. And 2 of the projects are based in Kazakhstan, and 2 are based in Philippines. So those are the 3 countries in which we're working right now. And of course, COVID sort of delayed things in this vein, but we are planning to expand to a couple of other countries. We're looking already at projects in Madagascar, off the east coast of Africa, and also potentially looking at some product development collaborations in the Hong Kong, Singapore region. Those are very early conversations, or they were very early conversations, I should say, before the pandemic sent everything into a tailspin. But so here's the essential structure. So a student applies, they get accepted, they get accepted to their first choice of project, which happens about 90% of the time, because that's really what we want to do. And so they commit to essentially a 1-year time frame working on that project, starting in the spring semester, ending in the end of the fall semester. And then in the summer, they have the opportunity, it's not a requirement for the fellowship, but they have an opportunity if they want to work on the the project full-time in the summer through Mountaintop. And then there's the other summer component, which is required for the fellowship, which is the international fieldwork component. And when we say fieldwork, our fieldwork is true on the ground, rigorous fieldwork. So these are, we structure the fieldwork as 2.5 to 3 week time frames. And when the students are there, they are doing everything that they need to do in order to move their projects forward. They are networking with partners. They are finding new partners. They are conducting interviews and focus groups. They are really, implementing their products. They are pilot testing products. They're doing everything that needs to be done in order to really supercharge their project forward. And then they come back from that, and in the fall semester, then they have an opportunity to kind of digest what happened during field work, get the project really in its next phase to set it up for the next team of students that will then theoretically come in the next spring semester. So and so then in the spring and spring and fall semesters, they take 3 academic credits each semester, consisting of 2 courses. 1 credit each semester from a 3-hour seminar that meets once a week, in which we sort of deliver to them the kind of overarching topical content that they would need. We talk about those mindsets and skill sets in that seminar course. We have them work on their team building and leadership skills. We have them work on ethical decision making. We give them all kinds of case studies on social impact and global social impact projects to digest and to think about and talk about. We require them to give presentations to panels of external referees that come in. Dr. Soriano has been invited to those panels a couple of times. And they are required twice each semester to give those presentations, and they get rated on those presentations. So if we do any focusing on grades, it's in that mode where these are external people not affiliated with the projects, but these are experts in the field, and they come in and they determine, they get to feedback to the students and say, here's where you're on the right track, here's where you might be on the wrong track, here's how you can think more expansively and more impactfully about your project. And so that's an opportunity for them to get that external calibration that we talk about. So 3 credits in the spring, 3 credits in the fall, and then in the summer field work. And then we offer, as you see, some day-long workshops. We do a kickoff workshop on a Saturday. We do a research writing workshop after field work, so that then they can really start to think about how are they going to publish the findings that they came up with from this field work. So now the elephant in the room, which you see right there in the middle of this matrix, is of course the pandemic. We did not do any international travel in 2020. And in 2021, thus far, we have not done any international travel. We are currently keeping our fingers heavily crossed that we can get some students to Sierra Leone in August, next month. We've actually bought their tickets. And so because currently the COVID situation in Sierra Leone is fairly mild, although it looks like even in the last day or two that may be changing quickly. So that trip could still be canceled, but that would be, if we are able to go and take those students, it will be Lehigh University's first sanctioned international travel for any of its students since the pandemic began. So we're, again, very hopeful, cautiously, but the fact is that because we haven't been able to do this international field work, some of the projects have really stagnated, and it's been much more difficult to really move them forward. That doesn't mean we still haven't had students working on the projects, but it's been obviously much more difficult because really we structured the program pre-pandemic predicated on this idea that they would be able to go and conduct the field work. So put that aside for just a moment, and I'll say one more thing about the field work, which is that also in terms of finances, we cover all students' in-country expenses while they are there. That's all their lodging, most meals, anything they would need while they're in country, we cover out of our budget. And then and obviously that leaves the students on the hook for airline tickets and vaccinations and visa costs and things like that, which is no small cost, but we provide, there are multiple sources of funding from various departments, offices, colleges throughout Lehigh that we connect our students with There are funds set up at Lehigh to help facilitate international travel for students that have high financial need. In other words, who really can't pay anything out of pocket. There are offices and funds at Lehigh University that are specifically set up to help those students make those opportunities possible. So the bottom line that we're very proud of is that no Lehigh student has ever been denied the opportunity to go on international fieldwork because of their ability to pay or not. So that is a big part of how we structure the program as well. All right, so let me quickly go through the projects that we have here. I think I have all 10. Sickle cell diagnostic. This is obviously, these first 6 are the Sierra Leone-based projects. This team has already developed in the lab a low cost, I think it would be just under $2 a piece, diagnostic test strip that can identify sickle cell trait before it leads to sickle cell disease, which is obviously can create huge health problems, and it does create huge health problems. And oftentimes the problem is less of the ability to treat sickle cell disease than it is the diagnosing of it. And diagnostics, currently diagnostic tests run, I think, around $10 a piece average. And so this is less than $2 each. So the team has already developed a working test strip, and they're working closely with Dr. Chidi Jaja, who you see here in the picture, who teaches at the University of South Carolina in the US, but is native Sierra Leonean and runs several health clinics in Sierra Leone. So the team is working with him to get these test strips integrated into the community health system. Here's a team that's, so this is relevant, of course, to the hunger matter. This is a team that's working on creating climate stable mushroom production systems, building mushroom production houses in Sierra Leone. This project actually started in Cambodia, where of course mushrooms are already much more of a part of the agriculture and in the food system. Not so much in Sierra Leone, although mushrooms are very much consumed when they are available, but they are not usually available. And we determined that the nutritional value potential in mushrooms was good enough that if we can produce them at scale and really get them into the marketplace, that there would be a market for them and that they could be integrated into the Sierra Leonean food system with high nutritional value. So they've already built one grow house in Sierra Leone. That was 2 years ago, back the last time they did field work. And they're currently conducting a lot of experiments on Lehigh's campus in order to try and figure out scaling up the operations. Mothers of Sierra Leone, this is a documentary filmmaking project that's looking at the real maternal mortality crisis in Sierra Leone. As some of you may know, Sierra Leone is one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. 1 out of every 16 pregnant women or mothers dies in the process either of giving birth or shortly thereafter or before or during pregnancy. So this team is just looking at that from a documentary filmmaking point of view. They're producing a series of documentary shorts that they're hoping to get to a very wide audience in the rest of the world to bring attention and awareness to this issue. Ukweli test strips. This is our most longest term project. This project has been in existence. Actually, it predates Kanjan's time at Lehigh. He actually began this project while he was still at Penn State. And the concept here is a test strip that can diagnose urinary tract infections and preeclampsia in pregnant women. Again, addressing the maternal mortality crisis in Sierra Leone. So that by diagnosing these things early, these conditions, the treatments can be applied. And again, the issue is not that the inability to diagnose these conditions, the issue has always been cost and availability of the diagnostics. And in this case, the Ukweli test strips can be manufactured for 2 cents each, which is about 100 times less than the going rate for a diagnostic test for UTIs and preeclampsia in Sierra Leone. So this project, having really achieved its, certainly achieved its science, has already been being manufactured and has already been integrated into some of the peripheral health units and community health clinics in Sierra Leone. And we have a photo there on the left of one of our students who actually just graduated last year. And the reason she's there is because she really spearheaded the efforts to get permission from the Pharmacy Control Board in Sierra Leone to manufacture and distribute the Ukweli test strips. And that was a year-long process, at least, involving heavy paperwork. And so this was an undergraduate student who, along with the team, really led the efforts to get that approval, and we're extremely proud of that. Diagnosing Autism in Africa. This is a team being led by one of the special education professors at Lehigh, and it's as the name says, it's attempting to not just provide a screening tool for diagnosing autism, but really identifying what autism is in West African nations, where it's still often seen as very, with a lot of skepticism, in some cases, actually even with violence. It's seen as a curse in some cases. And so this team is trying to destigmatize the idea of autism and autism spectrum disorders in Africa. And so they're doing this by developing a multicultural screening tool. So the final project in Sierra Leone is food products for childhood malnutrition and stunting, obviously a huge issue in Sierra Leone, as it is in many countries. So this team, this is from their last fieldwork trip 2 years ago. This team developed muffins for 2 to 5 year olds and a pudding for 0 to 2 year olds that contained high levels of essential nutrients, vitamin A, iodine, iron, and blanking on the other one. But they developed these, while they were in Sierra Leone, and then they started to test them out, and that was kind of as far as they got on the last fieldwork trip. And so that project is still in existence, but it's been a little bit on hold, and we haven't actually taken new students onto that project until we know that we can get back there for fieldwork. All right, so here are the 2 Philippines-based projects. I know I'm far over time, so I'm going to go a little bit more quickly here. PlasTech Ventures, we can have a chance to talk about this. Taking plastics waste and creating simple machines that can upcycle that plastics waste into products and then working with groups of nanais outside of Manila in order to give them use of these machines to create products that they can sell for an income stream. So a very multi-level project there, addressing the plastics waste problem and also addressing the income problem among some of these communities. And then Zero Hunger College. This is, I mentioned the Mindanao Food Highway project earlier, and Dr. Soriano certainly mentors this project. This is looking at a model of establishing a school of sorts or a curriculum for women to learn more about farming, agriculture, food systems, and so that they can then take back to their village the knowledge that they gain from a short course, maybe 6 months to a year of a curriculum, and then they can, address those food insecurity issues back at home. These are the 2 projects in Kazakhstan. We have both of them dealing with the air quality problems in the city of Almaty, fast-growing city and with a huge air pollution problem. So this team, Save TUBA, is developing a game, an app for middle school students that will help educate them on environmental problems and also on lifestyle changes that they can make in order to improve their environment, in order to help improve their environment. So the idea is getting the younger children engaged in this issue, and then hopefully they can transfer that to their parents, grandparents, and whoever. And then finally, another project. This is dealing with the air quality issue from a different angle, providing an app that can help people recognize when the air quality is very poor, when it's a little bit better, maybe even if they're taking a trip or if they're going for a run, an app that would identify routes that they could take that would be better air quality, particularly if they have pre-existing conditions like asthma. So, and then very, very quickly, 2 other impact fellowships we've established that have spun out of the Global Social Impact Fellowship. Lehigh Valley Social Impact Fellowship. Lehigh Valley is the region where Bethlehem is, where Lehigh University is. It's a region encompassing about 700,000 people and about 3 different cities. Eastern Pennsylvania. So we have projects that deal with similar issues in this region. We have a project that deals with the prison problem. We have projects that are educating students about the natural world around them that they may not, that urban students may not get to experience through virtual reality. And then finally, Campus Sustainable Impact Fellowship. We established this program just last year. So all of these projects are very early stage, but we have projects looking at the carbon footprint and water footprint of various foods that the university dining services purchases and uses, so that students can make different choices in dining, and also that the dining services can make different choices in the foods that they purchase. We have a project looking at the campus food system to try and make it more closed loop system. There are, even at a very wealthy and privileged research university like Lehigh, there are inequities in the food system. There are students that end up in the end of the semester, they have unused meals in their meal plan, and there are other students that are struggling to find those meals, and there's no way to connect those. So that's one of the things that this project is trying to address. An energy and water dashboard for what the energy usage is around campus to try and get people aware of where the most energy is being used and try and reduce it. Smart recycling bins, which are sorely lacking in the US. Living spaces that involve nature, where people can live and work in nature. And then, as I mentioned, Lehigh's on a mountain, so transportation is a constant issue, and the energy efficiency of that transportation is a constant issue. So we have a team that's brainstorming, ideating new ways that Lehigh might construct its transportation system, and even radical ideas like a gondola that goes over the mountain that might create more energy efficiency. All of the projects seek and most get external funding. We have lots of external partners. And I'm just going to point to one here that's relevant to the group. That's on the bottom left there, the Food System Vision Prize. We were really pleased. This was 2 years, or last year, I guess, early last year. 75,000 projects were submitted for the Food System Vision Prize that the Rockefeller Foundation was established. One of which was our Malnutrition and Stunting project in Sierra Leone that I mentioned earlier. And 20,000 projects. They selected 75 semifinalists, and our project was one of those 75. So we were very pleased about that. They didn't make it onto the finals, but that was a real validation of the kind of work that we're doing. And all of this is validation of the work that we do. And we couldn't do it without some of these external funds. So I know I'm far over time, so I'll just cruise through my top 10 list here. This is kind of just some of the qualities of the work. Multidisciplinary teams, being a global professional, as I mentioned, published research, professional conferences. Here's our students at a professional conference just a couple of years ago in California. Grad schools, med schools, we have students going on getting Fulbrights, fellowships, taking impact-focused careers, and then, of course, we try and have a little bit of